Today we will be making the ASNAP version 2. The first pieces we are making will be 2-inch security straps and 2-inch extended aims. Fold the hook in half and place over nylon. Sew around nylon and back tack on both sides. On the other end, fold 1/2 inch and sew loop on top with back tacks on both ends. For the aims, we are using 2-inch nylon hook and loop. You'll want to put loop down and back tack both ends on both sides. Follow markers to place on hook and back tack on both short ends. Use the marks to fold in half, starting with a back tack. Sew down the first side of the aims. Turn and sew again. And then you're going to sew up the other side, stopping at the first sewing line on the loop, and sew that area twice. That's going to stop the plastic from being pushed all the way inside. You're going to slide the plastic to the sewing line you just put and finish with a back tack. Here we're going to make the aims cross webbing. You fold the nylon in half and sew a 1/2 inch seam with back tacks. Back tacks are 3 to 4 sewing lines in the same space. You're going to want to flip over that nylon, making sure the seam is about 2 inches away from the outer edge. You're going to sew around, splitting that seam in half, so one side's on one and one side's on the other. And then you're going to finish with a sewing line down the middle. And here you'll fold over the back tool slots 2 times and double needle both the back tool slots and the pencil pockets. You can use a single needle machine for this as well, just add 2 lines. And this is the inside back body. The back tool slots are going to be sewn to it, starting with a back tack, and a full stitch over the top. You will sew down the first side, fold the webbing to the marks, sew the bottom of the webbing, sew up the other side, and finish with a 1-inch back tack with a stitch over at the top. And you will do this 2 times. Next, we will be making the outside back body. On the wrong side of the fabric, there'll be slots. You're going to want to sew the 1.5 inch nylon to the Kadura. And that's going to be the security strap enforcement webbing. Here we're going to put the security straps on with the loop on top. You're going to want to make sure that security strap nylon is even with the top of the loop. Where the security strap sticks out from under the loop, you're going to want to place 3 sewing lines on each side, and the top and the bottom of the loop both get 3 sewing lines as well. That's going to reinforce the loop. On the bottom of the outer body, you're going to want to place the 2-inch nylon down, and you're going to want to sew a line, making sure that each side of the loop, the short loop, is being sewn 3 times. Now we're making the back slip pocket buffer. Fold at the notches to make sure one side of the fabric is slightly longer than the other. Sew around the 3 sides, leaving that bottom portion open. Now we're going to add the 2 3-inch wide nylons. And you're going to fold that nylon to make sure it's even on both long sides. And you're going to sew around using an 8-inch seam. And then you're going to add the second one. Then you're going to fold that excess nylon over and close that end. And you'll be placing a 2-inch loop on the inside back body as well, making sure to back tack on both short ends of the loop. And here you will see the pieces that make up the back body. The first one is the wrong side of the outer back body with enforcement webbing. The second one is the outer back body with security straps. The third one is the inner back body with tool slots. And the fourth one is the back slip pocket buffer. And now we're going to close the back body. With both wrong sides together, sew back body fully closed using a 1/4 inch seam. Make sure the fabric lines up with itself. And sew through the bottom 2-inch loop with back tacks at both ends to secure the main body together. Here you will be making the small Ames webbing. Fold the webbing in half and sew around with a line down the middle. This is the front body pocket with wrong sides together. Sew around. And then you're going to attach the 1-inch heavy webbing going through both pieces of fabric. And then you will double fold that excess fabric at the top, and either using a double needle machine or a single needle machine, you will add 2 lines. And in between that space that you left open from the nylon, you're going to add the 2 copper wires in. Make sure you leave a little bit of room on each end so when you close the pocket you'll have space to sew. And now you're going to sew that Ames cross webbing on the front pocket body using that back tacks at both ends. And follow the marks to place the other 2 back tacks in, creating 3 open Ames areas. And on the back side of this, you're going to attach the 1.5-inch nylon. There's going to be a small fold on each end, and you just sew around one time. Okay, you're going to want to bind the small pocket flap closed, and then you're going to add the 2-inch hook with back tacks to both short ends and add a line down the middle. And then you attach the flap with hook facing up, and make sure that when you place that hook, you're making it even with the bottom edge of that fabric. You're going to sew around with back tack on both ends and place a line down the middle. And with right sides together, you're going to fold that corner area onto itself and back tack really well, about a 1/2 inch in. There are marks. And you're going to do that on both sides to make the front part of the pocket. You want to make sure you back tack really well so the front part of the pocket doesn't come undone. Okay, here we're going to make the front pocket back. You're going to sew a 2-inch loop to the front of the pocket back, and it's going to be at both ends. You're going to start with the back tack, go around, and then you're going to fold that fabric in half and sew all the way around again. This is forming the back pocket. And through both of those pieces of loop, you're going to sew a back tacked middle line. Okay, we're going to sew the front pocket together. Line up the front and back body. Starting with the back tack, you're going to want to sew down the side. There'll be a small turn at the bottom, or a small fold at the bottom. And end with the back tack. And then you're going to sew up the other side as well, making sure to follow the marks at the bottom of the pocket and lining up the top of the pocket so they're both even. And you're going to bind that small pocket, making sure to leave a tail at both ends of the binding You'll want to leave about 1.5 inches. So when you sew the pocket to the main body, you can fold that under so you won't see any raw edges. Okay, now we're going to start on the main body. With both wrong sides together, you're going to sew around. You're going to add the 1-inch webbing at the top, making sure to leave one side open so you can slide in those 2 pieces of copper wire later. And then you're going to double fold that excess at the top, and either with a double needle machine or a single needle machine, you'll add the 2 lines. And next we're going to add those pencil pockets. There is a left and a right, so make sure to follow the sample on which side to put where. You're going to start with a 1-inch back tack with stitch over at the top and fold to the marks. Sew down the first side. Sew to that middle mark, and then turn your fabric, stitch up, turn your fabric again, and stitch to the next mark. And all of those stitches are going to be sewn twice for security. And then you're going to finish sewing up the pocket with a 1-inch back tack with stitch over. And there's a pencil pocket on each side of the front main body. And now we're going to add the small Ames cross webbing. You're going to want to back tack the folded end towards the outside and the raw edges end towards the inside, making sure to leave a slight hump in the nylon. And on both sides, you're going to place those, making sure that raw edge is on the inside, because that will eventually be covered up by that small pocket that we made earlier. And here you're going to sew up the bottom. There's excess fabric, so just fold it over and sew it up. Flip that fabric over, and you're going to add a 3-inch piece of nylon. It'll be folded on each end, and you just sew around, making sure that nylon stays even with the edge of that folded Kadura. Okay, you're going to bind that main body flap closed and add a 2-inch hook with back tacks on both short sides. And then you're going to add a line down the middle as well. You're going to attach the flap with hook side facing up. Start and end with a back tack. And then you're going to place that 2-inch hook on top. Back tacking both ends and sewing around with a line in the middle. And then we're going to add those 2 copper-coated wires in there. Sometimes you'll need to use some pliers or something to help you get it in. It's a little difficult. Make sure you leave about a 1/2 inch on either side, so when we close the main body, we'll have room to sew. Okay, and here we have the front pocket in the main body. Follow the marks right up against the lower edge of that 1-inch nylon. You're going to want to fold over that binding space. You're going to start with a back tack, making sure to stitch over. You're going to sew down the right side of the binding line. Go down and around. There are marks on the pocket to follow to sew that bottom line. Then you're going to go back up the other side of the binding, making sure to cover those raw edges of that Ames cross webbing. You're going to want to fold over that nylon, that webbing again. And end with a back tack. Sometimes you got to get in there and push that binding under with a pair of nippers or your hook. And you're going to want to sew both binding sewing lines. making sure on the bottom to sew on the same line that you already sewed. And what you're doing is making a flap to close that small pocket on the front. And then you're going to sew up the other side on that inside binding line and finish with a back tack. Okay, you're going to want to fold the right sides together into that angled corner again and sew a 1/2 inch seam with back tack on both sides. Make sure you make that extra secure so the bag doesn't want to come apart. And you're going to do that on each side. Okay, and on the left you have the main front body, and on the right you have the main back body. Okay, to sew these two pieces together, you're going to want the back slip pocket buffer facing up, and there are marks right above where the back slipper pocket starts. You're going to want to use those marks to line up the top of the pocket. You're going to sew a back tack and a 1/4 inch seam all the way down the side, and then back tack again. The bottom of the pocket should line up with the bottom of that slip pocket. Okay, now we're going to put the binding on. You're going to start the binding at the bottom by the 2-inch loop. And you're going to go around, taking care to go slowly over those extra thick areas where the front pocket is, so you don't get any skip stitches. And make some sharp corners. And once you've got it bound, you will add the nail pull buffers, which are 1.5 inch nylons. They will be folded over, and even with the binding, you're going to sew all the way around, making sure to fold both sides. And there are marks on the back side of the body, so you know exactly where to put them both. Okay, and then you're going to flip over the product and you're going to add that Atlas patent pending logo on the front. It's going to go directly on top of those nylons that you just placed. Okay, and here we're going to add the extended 2-inch aims. The 2 outside aims will have suspender attachments. You're going to sew a 1-inch box around each aims right up until the plastic. Both long sides of the boxes will get 3 sewing lines. And then we're going to add the bar tacks. Each short end of the bar tack box gets a bar tack. And so does the sewing line right at the suspender attachment. You're going to want to follow the marks, and we're going to close that top flap. So at the top you're going to have an 1/8-inch seam. Making sure to start end to end with the back tack. And you're going to lift the aims up and sew on the bottom sewing line of the binding. Start with a back tack and sew down the rest of the flap, making sure it is as flat as possible. And then you're going to end with a back tack. Okay, and now we're going to add the remaining bar tacks. At the top and bottom on both sides of the main body pocket, you will add a bar tack. And on the bottom of the closing flap under the aims, you'll add a bar tack as well. One on each side. Okay, so now we will make the removable D-ring strap. It's very similar to the very first strap that we made. So we're using 1-inch nylon hook and loop. Fold the hook over, place the nylon inside, with back tack close in both sides and all the way around. A 1/2 inch fold on the other side for the loop. Place the loop on top, sew around with back tacks on both ends. Slide the D-ring on the loop side with loop facing down and sew a back tack to secure the D-ring inside the sewing line. And here is our completed A-snap.